Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Geek podcast, where we celebrate geek, nerd, and pop culture. Each week, we deliver the best analysis for fans, by fans, on anything related to movies, TV, video games, comics, anime, and manga. We talk geek. And now, here's the Get Geek podcast.
Hey, what is up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Get Geek podcast. It's been a while. We've been busy. We all been a little busy, and there's just a couple of us here today, but we always appreciate whoever's able to show up for the crew. I am Jose. Say hello, my friends.
This is a host.
Okay. The host shall not be named, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this is Walt. What's up, guys?
What is up, y'all? Like I said, it's been a while. How's everybody been? I mean, I know we're family and all. We find out about that stuff. But how's the last week of your life been?
Boring.
Boring? Why boring?
I don't know.
Just not a lot to do.
No, it's just I come home tired from work, so I haven't really been doing anything. The only thing I will say I've been doing is I've been reading,
What have you been
which
reading?
is something I haven't done in a while.
What have you been checking out?
If you remember a while back, I used to read the Mortal Instruments books.
Mhm,
I've
mhm.
been catching up on those.
Oh, nice.
I'm on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th installment
How
of
many-
the main story.
Those books are huge.
Yeah.
They're ginormous. They're like
how
War and
many-
Peace size.
It's like 1,000. You've read 9,000 pages in the last couple of weeks or something.
No, each book is
Probably 4.
anywhere from 3 to not even 300. Yeah, maybe a good 500. So the
Dang.
first one was maybe 500. That the first one that I've been reading. The second one was maybe a little more than that. And then this last one that I'm reading, although there's one after that, is probably closer to the realm of 700 or something.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact page numbers, but it's a lot.
That's dense, man. I think it's been a long time since I've read fiction. I'm not a big fiction reader, to be honest. But I remember the biggest series I probably read when I was reading fiction was the Chronicles of Narnia when I was a kid. And those are 200-page books or something like that. Not 500 to 700 pages. That's quite a commitment. How many books are there in the Mortal Instruments series?
Well, as far as the main story / timeline, I guess,
Mhm.
you have the first 6 books, which deal with the main character, Clary Fairchild. And then you have these next 3 books, which deal with a different set of characters, but is still following the same events. The events of the 6th book play heavily into these 3 books that I'm reading now.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's supposed to be at least 1 book after that, but I'm not too sure because I haven't really read the back of it extensively. I just figured since it's whoa, I've never seen this before nor heard of it. This must be the latest one.
So this is remind me
Mhm.
how you got it. This was a show. This was a thing that was adapted into a show, right?
It was adapted into a movie
I
first,
think,
and
right?
then it was adapted into a much better show.
The Shadowhunters, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you got into it because of the show or the movie or the books first?
I think it was actually
I think it was the show, right?
no. I was reading the books long before the show.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
the show was just a happenstance.
Yeah.
It was oh, they're adapting it,
I think this was one of those things where I saw trailers for the movie, or I think you just got it as like a Christmas gift and it's just like, oh, this is very similar to Supernatural, which coincidentally it actually is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once I read the first book, it just took off.
Okay.
Am I correct in like the Mortal Instruments it's kind of like a young adult novel
Yeah,
series, right? Or it started
it
out that
is.
way, kind of like Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
Hmm.
it
Okay.
definitely is.
Yeah, I mean Harry Potter also, like I knew a few people that read it growing up, that were younger than I, so when it was coming out they were teenagers, and it definitely, I don't know if Mortal Instruments is the same, but I know it kind of grew up with its readers a little bit. Each novel got a little bit more, I don't want to say exactly adult, but had more adult themes. Um, I don't
Sort
know.
of, yeah. I can see the argument for that.
In Harry Potter, at least. I don't know if that's how Mortal Instruments is. I'm not super familiar with the storyline, but that's
Well,
pretty cool.
it's kind of like
If it's supernatural, something
Mortal
like that.
Instruments kind of deals with hunters, then, and they have the ability to see monsters that other people can't, right? Is that basically the premise of it, in a sense?
Uh, and sort of, yeah, in the very vaguest
Yeah,
sense.
because I don't know too much about the thing. I
Like,
know.
if you wanted to go for the most superficial, vague thing possible, that's basically it.
So then, please explain it then, because I surely can't.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, let's put it this way.
Mm.
Some 100 years ago, a guy summons an angel and says, "Yo, we need help. These demons, it's not cool. All right, fine, I'll help you. Let me take this cup, mix my blood in it. You'll be the first Nephilim." Because you can't really do it the natural way because that's kind of a law in heaven.
Okay.
It's not good. So he did it a different way. And so basically that's how you get the shadow hunters, the people who keep the peace in a way. Like demons are the main threat, but
Mm.
sometimes it can be other things like warlocks who are generally good, but they're kind of here nor there sometimes.
Okay.
Like in this recent book I read, one of them went to the dark side. So
Okay. So very supernaturally.
yeah,
Like a YA supernatural / Constantine, like maybe like a couple of properties put together. I don't know. That sounds interesting. I mean, I haven't seen any of the properties. If the show is pretty good, though, I might check that out
it
because the
followed
movie
the
looked corny.
books
Like,
faithfully enough.
It only lasted like 2 seasons, right?
Yeah, they only adapted the first 6 books.
oh, well, I mean, that's still pretty solid.
First six
No,
books
no,
in
but
two
no, it
seasons,
wasn't two
right?
seasons. No,
Oh, it was more than that.
yeah, it had to be more than 2 seasons.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I
Yeah,
don't
to
know.
do 6 books in 2 seasons is amazing.
6 War and Pieces in 2 seasons is like
That's
impeccable.
crazy.
You're like either the best writer on earth or you're an absolute maniac for doing that.
Yeah, exactly. It was a little bit way out there. So
How many seasons was it? Is it 3, 4?
I am looking
I
now,
know it
and
wasn't
it
a
looks
ton,
it's 3
right?
seasons.
3
it's
seasons.
3 seasons.
Okay.
So I guess 2 books a season, right?
Yeah, I mean that sounds semi doable, but it still seems like
guess.
a lot of density for these huge books that are 500 plus pages. What it was really on Amazon Prime or something, right?
Nope,
Am I crazy?
it was on Freeform.
Yeah.
Freeform. Oh wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
Amazon didn't spend their money on that one, unfortunately.
No.
I feel like
I
there was
mean,
something else
even though it wasn't Amazon, I thought it was at least pretty well produced. Like the show felt a lot like Supernatural. It just, if Supernatural tried to make things a little less, yeah, you know what? Monsters look like people. Nah, this was more along the lines of a fantasy type thing. Like when you looked at a werewolf, it was a wolf.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Supernatural was more the hidden demons and beasts,
Yes.
I guess, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. That sounds pretty good. I mean, yeah, I guess being tired and bored sucks, but it sounds like you're making the best of whatever free time you have. What about you, Walt? Working? Same old, same old? Anything
Yeah,
fun recently?
working on the other podcast, which is kind of tiring and stuff. Since we've gone to video,
Mm.
video is cool, but um, it's a lot of work to put into. But we did watch and finish the adaptation by Netflix of The Sandman, which I
Ah.
thought was pretty interesting. It was 10 episodes, right?
Was
10
it?
episodes? Yeah, I think so. 10 episodes of pure
But
The
it felt
Sandman
it felt like
funness.
2 seasons.
It really did, because the interesting thing, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched it yet,
Mhm.
but the interesting thing about The Sandman, the show, and I gathered this, they've done a really, really good job of adapting the comic uh, to the small screen.
Mhm.
And of course, Neil Gaiman is involved, right? But the interesting thing is that there comes a point at, like, I think it's like episode 4 or 5,
Mhm.
where it feels like it's the end of the season,
Okay.
because it's got like various story arcs, and each one of them feel very distinct from each other. So there's like one thing where they're following this thing, and then all of a sudden that ends and it transitions to another story, and then that ends, and so it feels like you're watching 2 seasons in one, really.
Okay.
Like when we were watching him, my wife was like, "Is this the season finale?" And I'm like, "No, we still got like 5 more episodes left."
Okay. So it was like the
So
last like 30 minutes of Return of the King. Got it. Cool.
yeah, basically, you know what I'm saying. So it's an interesting thing. It Like I said, there are literally, like, I had sent a group, or maybe I didn't send it to you guys, but I know I sent it to kids.
Mhm.
There's literally a scene in the Sandman that is word for word, shot for shot from the comic, and that's
Oh,
how you know fine that adaptation is. But then they make changes, which understandably, for, I guess, more modern times, even though this is not an old book. But it's a pretty interesting show. But I'll tell you this much: if you're expecting tons and tons and tons and tons of action, this is not going to be it.
Doesn't
You
sound like
know,
something that Neil Gaiman does anyway, but
yeah, this it can be slow at times,
mhm.
but the storytelling is very dense, so it kind of makes up for it that way.
Okay. It's good prestige television.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it. I also want to take some time. You had mentioned before we started the cast that the comic is a very long run, but I would love to get started on it
Hmm.
to then watch the show, because I also like did not know. And we can't get too deeply into this without spoiling it. But I did not know that it was based on both that and Lucifer are basically the same story, just adapted differently. I don't know. Are you
yep,
guys aware of this? Like
I
you all
am.
saw Lucifer, right? Didn't you see
I
that show as
did.
well?
AJ, I watched probably the first 3 seasons, maybe,
Hmm.
and then when news that they were going to cancel, I kind of fell off, because I'm like, at that point, what's the point? There.
Okay.
But it was revived by Netflix, and AJ continued, and he pushed all the way to the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So very, very, it's the same character in the Sandman, but very different at the same time.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Because I hear
So,
that it's a very different adaptation, which is really interesting. Because I don't think I've
well,
ever heard of something like that before in the past, where they take a single piece of source material and adapt it so differently. Actually, the only time I think I've ever heard of something like that was The Shining, the Stephen King book,
right.
versus the Stanley Kubrick movie, which is
Well,
very different. And then Stephen King went back and made his own version on TV in
I
the 90s.
I would probably say that the Sandman's version of Lucifer is probably closer to the comics, because
Yeah.
the
That's what I've
one that
heard.
was done, the one that was done for originally Fox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Lucifer did start out on Fox
Mm-hmm.
and then transition to Netflix. That is a very, very different version from the one that you see in the comic books. They took a lot of liberties with that character. So I think if you look at the Sandman, that's probably the closest to the comic book version of Lucifer than the other one.
And I know
So,
Lucifer was also a very popular and well received show as well, so it's probably still worth checking out.
oh,
I
absolutely.
would imagine.
The lead, the the actor that plays Lucifer is very, very charismatic, and I'm surprised he's not in more things because he's that good.
Now,
So
correct me if I'm wrong. And again, we don't have to get too deeply into this. Perhaps we should begin to move on. But like, it doesn't seem like the Sandman version of the character is quite as charismatic as the Lucifer version of the character.
she is
This is
more
a
sinister,
very,
right?
yeah, like this is kind of like the Lucifer Morningstar you don't want to mess with,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And I
rather
mean,
than the other one, which is kind of, yeah, you don't want to mess with me, but I'm much more lively and fun. No, this one is out to get you.
Yeah, this one I don't think you can envision as being a club owner anytime
Yeah.
soon. Let's put it that way. So,
okay.
you know.
Well, I mean, the only other thing that I know of about it is that apparently Neil Gaiman is much more heavily involved in this. He wasn't even involved in Lucifer, as far as I understand. He's involved in
Right.
this adaptation, if I'm not mistaken. Is that
Oh,
right?
absolutely. He is 100% involved. This is his baby, and he's not letting anybody mess with. And so a lot of the changes were changes that he made himself. He's like, okay, for this, like he took storylines and completely changed. Not only there's a new character in the show that
Mm-hmm.
is an amalgamation of two characters. They've
Mm-hmm.
changed different stories for different people to kind of fit that narrative and stuff like that, and I think it works pretty well. So but yeah, he's definitely involved, and I don't foresee him getting off the project because the Sandman is his baby, right?
Yeah.
So you're not gonna let anybody mess around with that if that's your thing. So
Yeah. I hope it's not some situation where like they end up finding that there's huge creative differences. It does sound like they're just basically like let Neil kind of figure this out, and it's Netflix, right? So hopefully
hmm
they're going to give him as much free reign or not free reign, give him as much control over his baby, as you said,
yeah, and
as
it,
he
it
could
does
possibly get.
appear it does appear that we're gonna get a season 2. So that's always positive stuff.
Yeah, on Netflix especially, where like
Exactly.
season 2 is like a hill that very few shows climb unless they're named Stranger Things,
Exactly.
which I mean, that's part of that's one of the things that I've dug into recently. We can certainly get into that. But other than that, for myself, I'll just jump into it, and then we'll jump into the convo, perhaps. Uh, I guess I haven't been able to watch very much, but for me, it's been kind of fun. My personal life, in that I moved down to Atlanta, which y'all are aware of. This is why actually I have not been on the podcast for a little while because, uh, we drove down. Well, let's see. Let me break this down for the viewers. I'm not going to like talk about my whole personal life too long, right? Because that's not what we're here for. But I haven't been on the podcast for a bit because I got married on May 28th. I got a new work from home job on June 13th, and my wife and I lived in Brooklyn when y'all started listening to the podcast. I now live in Atlanta. Um, Bought a house down here less than a month after getting married, and it's all amazing, but it's all like a little crazy at the same time. So it's been, finally got the office settled, which is why like today, I actually had to like settle last week, but we had some things that we couldn't record last week. So I'm really happy to be back. But essentially, yeah, it's been opening boxes. I got a cool new standing desk for my office. And so it's real nice to have like a designated office area where I can just bust out the microphone and get straight to recording. It's going to make that a lot easier and a lot more fun. But yeah, like without getting into it too deeply, I am glad to be back talking about nerdy stuff because it has been a while uh, since I've had much time to do anything. I haven't seen a lot of things recently, but I have seen some of the big things that have come out recently. Again, like Stranger Things, uh, and things like that. So I guess the only other thing that I've been up to, near where we live here in Atlanta, there's a drive-in theater.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I learned that what the strategy is for next time, because we hopped in the car. You know, like everybody just hops in the car. You sit in your driver's, your passenger seats. You turn on the radio and you watch the movie. That's generally how you do a drive-in, or at least that's what I thought. Because the strategy in the future is going to be, you got to park your car backwards. We got a SUV. Open up your trunk, put some pillows in there or something, and just like lay out and watch the movie, which is going to be our plan for the future. But we saw Nope, which was
how was that?
Really good. I think y'all would love it. I think y'all would really, really enjoy it. I would definitely recommend it. It's really solid, like sci-fi horror. I don't want to spoil any of it, but like, you know, the performances are great. The creature is awesome. It's very interesting. It looks really cool. It's like creepy, but also like super intriguing. And you know, Daniel Kaluuya, as always, basically is fantastic in this movie. He's great in just about everything I've seen him in. And Kiki Palmer is really, really great. Both of them do a great job. And our boy Glenn, gosh, I can't remember his name right now. Somebody help me out with Glenn from The Walking Dead.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Ooh, he's in it as well, and he does a really, really good job. Hold on, I got to look this up because I got to show some props to him. He's a great actor.
Is he like the veteran alien hunter?
No, not exactly.
No? Okay.
Not exactly. He has like a
carnival thing or something like that.
Sort of. Like, it's really interesting, like his backstory, because I don't want to give it away too much. I will say that there's this whole crazy side story where he is a child TV star. He's like a child TV star, and like there's a crazy incident that happens on the set of the show. Stephen Yeun. Yes, thank you very much. I got to give him props.
Oh, him.
Because he's a solid actor. Yeah, Stephen Yeun. He's a really solid actor. I've always enjoyed him. And he does a great job in this movie as well. But, you know, I loved it. My wife loved it. And there's a lot of real good reviews out there. It's something that I would definitely check out.
I want to see the Akira slide.
Oh yeah. Did you see the clip of him talking to somebody about putting it in the movie?
Yeah.
I forgot who it was.
It's what's his name? The director. Geez. Oh, Jesus Christ. We're horrible with names today.
Yeah, no, but there's a clip of Jordan Peele talking to somebody.
Jordan Peele, yeah, exactly.
I can't remember who he's talking to, though. That's what I can't remember.
Oh, okay, yeah. But he was talking about, I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to put it in a movie, and I got a chance, and I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Well, y'all remember also, he was briefly attached to adapt Akira into live action, but that didn't pan out.
That's never going to happen, but...
That's really hard. You know what I mean? I think he ended up refusing it because he was like, nah, this is too much, or like something like that. I mean, I probably would too.
It's like one of those projects, unfilmable, right?
Yeah, unfilmable. Until somebody eventually does it, like the Lord of the Rings or something like that. But I had some faith that he would be able to do it well. But yeah, Nope is cool. The Akira slide is cool. And he's such a goofy geek about whoever he has that conversation about. He's like laughing and giggling about like, I got to put it in the movie. So it's like it's like fun to see, like somebody really, really enjoy.
I definitely want to watch that movie. It's not going to be the next movie that we watch though, because the next movie that we're going to go watch is Dragon Ball Superhero.
I haven't gotten my tickets yet. I gotta go get them right away.
We're watching it this Friday, so maybe after that, then we'll do Nope.
Do a double feature.
That'll be good counter programming, right?
It's a good double feature. Yeah, you have completely different styles and genres, basically. Maybe
I'm actually excited to see the Dragon Ball Super movie. So
me too.
I purposely don't know almost anything about it. I know it heavily features both Gohan and Piccolo, but I'm leaving it at that. I'm not trying to find out anything else, even though the movie has been out for like, I think a couple of months now in Japan, but I'm refusing to find out what the story is about because I want to go in with fresh eyes.
I'll tell you what, it's real weird the way that I approach Dragon Ball, because I approach it unlike any other property that I enjoy. I don't mind spoilers for Dragon Ball. I don't understand why that is. I think it's because
sometimes you need it because Dragon Ball can kind of be obtuse in its storytelling.
That's what I'm saying. Like the storytelling has never been the highlight of Dragon Ball, in my opinion, or at least not since Z. Like, and I think
the movies, the movies lately have been really good with storyline.
They've been much better.
Yeah, but like you said before that, it was basically just a fighting game brought to life on screen, right?
Yeah, it was just some monster woke up somehow, or some beast or some demon or some like enemy woke up, and they were just like, oh, we need to fight it, I guess. And then they would fight it, and that would be the end of it.
Yeah.
So,
and not to diminish any of the series and stuff like that, because the series are great. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that we're not saying that. It's just you got to be frank. The storytelling isn't the greatest part of Dragon Ball at that point,
Well, when you watch Dragon
it's
Ball,
still an awesome series.
You know what you're watching it for.
Exactly.
It's to watch people blow things up, like with their hands, or punch people through planets, or like whatever overly exaggerated nonsense you want to bring to the table. But Dragon Ball's iconic.
Absolutely.
That's all that it is. There is. It's almost like nostalgia watching a Dragon Ball film these days, even though it's a new one. It's like, oh man, I feel like I'm 17 again or something like that.
I literally can't wait.
Yeah, me too.
Well, talking about punching planets and breaking stuff.
Yeah.
I think we came on here with a clear, well, at least we tried to at the beginning, right? With a clear thing that we were going to talk about.
Sure.
Something that
got to it.
I love. I think you are on the same plane with me in terms of this character, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about. Well, I don't even how we're talking about the Hulk. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
I can't say we're talking about Marvel Comics Hulk, MCU Hulk, because they're very, very different characters.
Well, that was kind of like, I came into this today. That's why I was like, let's ease into this, because this is basically mostly likely going to be a rant about how you're upset about what they've done to your boy.
Yeah,
right.
Kind of.
Because that's kind of how this conversation started, right? We were talking the other day about how he looks in She-Hulk, I think, right? We were just chatting in the Telegram chat or something along those lines about what Mark Ruffalo's Hulk has become. And look, I kind of get it, because She-Hulk has never been the most serious comic. So if you're going to have Hulk in it,
I guess.
Well, remember, She-Hulk is kind of like, she's the fourth wall breaking character. She hasn't always been that, but like she became the fourth wall breaking character. It's a lot of times She-Hulk comics are about her being a lawyer, like not even about her punching things.
Right.
So it's a very different style of comic from the Hulk. And unfortunately, the natural progression of Mark Ruffalo's Hulk was decided by our boy Taika, which we love Taika.
We do. But Taika can be a little bit too Taika.
Right. We talked about this on the Thor Love and Thunder podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like a little while back. It's been a while, like we said.
Like Taika's a guy that you need to let flourish, but there has to be some boundaries, like you gotta try and find a way to contain Taika while at the same time let Taika be,
Yes.
And I think in Thor Ragnarok that was perfect Taika, right? But in Love and Thunder that is over the top Taika, if that's even a thing,
Right. And I love Taika Waititi. I saw, what have I seen of his films? I've seen Jojo Rabbit, which is a great movie. What is it? the Beasts of the Wild film. I can't recall the name of it, but with the kid from Deadpool 2.
Oh yeah, and
And
Sam Neill.
Sam Neill is in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great film. The problem I think that we ran into with Taika, with Hulk, and with all that by extension, and Walt, I'm gonna let you rant for a moment after I say this, is that like essentially what happened is like he didn't give those characters the same depth that he gave his comedic characters, quote unquote. Because Jojo Rabbit is a funny movie, right? He plays like an imaginary Hitler, which doesn't sound like it would be funny, but he plays him as like a joke, as like an idiot. He did it on purpose too. He did that on purpose. And it's the same thing with I gotta make sure that I remember the name of this one, because there's another Beasts movie that I'm thinking about. That Beasts of the Southern Wild, is that what it is? No, this is not it either. That's totally the wrong movie. That's the problem. That's why I'm like, let me make sure that I know what the heck I'm talking about here. Sorry, y'all. I'm not prepared.
No, it's fine. Taika Waititi is so he's got the movie. I think the one you're talking about is A Hunt for the Wildebeest.
Yes,
Wilder People.
Wilder People, not even beasts. I'm just thinking wildebeest, I guess.
Yeah. So that's kind of like it's like a walking, but sort of like coming of age, like buddy type of movie, right?
Yeah. I mean, the premise of that one is that the young man is adopted, and his adoptive mother is like his mom is married to Sam Neill. Like those are his adoptive parents, right? I mean, but when like Sam Neill is less into being a dad, let's just put it that way, than the mother figure, and then she passes away. So the rest of the movie is kind of like, how the heck are these two going to get along? And it's it's a really great movie. It's heartfelt. It's wonderful, and that's kind of the problem, because I think that the emotion that came out of like Thor Ragnarok also was a little more natural, because they were dealing with like the loss of Odin, the loss of his mother from the last movie, the loss of a lot of people in his life that were really, really like his family, right? Eventually he lost Ragnarok, right? Or he lost Valhalla in the end of the movie when it blows up. Right. Like that was maybe a warning if you think about it, because when it blows up in the movie, it's a comedic moment. It doesn't have like really that emotional depth that you would expect from somebody literally losing their entire society to a random like act of violence. And so I'll leave it off with this so that I'll let y'all like jump into it for a bit. But like, if you look at how it was handled by the Russos, they still maintained like the comedic aspect of Thor, right? After Ragnarok came out, when it was in Endgame.
Right.
But and Infinity War as well, also, right? He was already like kind of a goofy character by then. But,
Rabbit.
Yeah. but the thing that always stands out to me is that the Russos knew a little bit better. Maybe I think Waititi like plays it more like a cartoon, and I think that's why he's just like, I don't need to be super serious or emotional with this. But the Russos like really look at it like, and you can tell from like Captain America Winter Soldier, right, that they've always like looked at it as something that they can make these great genre films, like these movies that are like bigger than comics, quote unquote, even though we love comics.
They really ground things kind of in reality, that right. they don't go to the extremes that Taika does, and I think that's kind of, it's kind of and we discussed this in Love and Thunder. It's kind of a detriment to the characters, because it's a roller coaster ride with some of these characters when you're seeing them from movie to movie.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm talking about Thor a lot, but like, I'll give you an example of what I would like to see in terms of like, if you want to keep the Hulk slightly comedic, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm going to let you talk about that. But like, at the very least, what the Russos did effectively was they turned, and I talked about this in the chat the other day, like the way that they did it effectively was that they made Thor character not a comedic character, but a character who was funny and used humor to deal with stuff. Because one of my favorite scenes in that movie with Thor is when he's hanging out with Rocket before they're like going to get Stormbreaker, before they're going to like forge Stormbreaker after he decides like he needs a new weapon to kill Thanos, right? And there's that moment where he's talking about everything he's lost, and he's kind of joking about it, right? He's talking about he's like, oh, I lost my mom, I lost this person, I lost that person. He's kind of joking about it. He's laughing, he's smiling through it, but then like you see the tears kind of like come down, right? You see that this is a person that, even though he's being funny, like he's doing it to cope and not just to be a character, if that makes sense, to be a funny character.
Yeah.
So with all that said, we've gotten a comedic Hulk. This is basically what we've gotten since Ragnarok. They decided that was going to be the tone of the character, which kind of fits Mark Ruffalo's personality.
Yeah, I mean, I guess,
But yeah, you know what? I'm going to stop there, and Walt, go ahead and rant on this for a little bit if you wish.
I'm gonna go even further than Ragnarok, and I feel like the Hulk hasn't been treated as a proper character throughout his MCU run.
Okay.
I think the best version of the Hulk, and I'm not talking about Bruce Banner, but just the Hulk period, is in his own movie. And I think maybe that is kind of the reason why the Hulk is suffering as a character, because of the fact that Disney and Marvel, they are unable to kind of do a standalone Hulk film, right? The last one was the one with Ed Norton, right? And I still feel that is the best iteration of the Hulk, because if you look at that movie, right? That movie really leans in toward classic Hulk storylines. The lonely man, the guy that's and I hate to reference the 70s series, right? But the 70s series, it was Bruce Banner kind of wandering, America, because he couldn't stay in one place because of, everything that happens with him.
But wait, no, his name wasn't Bruce Banner, wasn't it?
It was
Bill Bixby.
Bill Bixby was the actor.
Oh gosh,
So,
was it? That's right.
It was Robert Bruce Banner.
That's right. That's how they changed it, right? Like they changed it a little bit. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, actually, Robert Bruce Banner has a reason. He's been in the comics. That's actually Bruce Banner's real name.
Oh,
and there's a reason. There's a reason why. Oh, there's a reason why. And so, just a fun fact, right? When the Hulk was created way back in the '60s, the Hulk came out of the Thing's popularity. The Thing came first,
right?
So Fantastic Four was a big hit for Marvel and stuff, and the Thing was kind of like the precursor to the Hulk. And so Stan Lee wanted to create something along the lines of the Thing, and so he looked at Frankenstein, he looked at Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, he looked at those type of characters, and he created the Hulk. Now, the interesting thing about Stan Lee is he's horrible with names, and there's a reason why he uses alliterations with his characters. Peter Parker,
Matt Murdock.
Matt Murdock, right? So Bruce Banner came out of that. Double B, right? In the very next episode, he started calling him Bob
Banner.
Bob Banner. So
Bobby
the writers, Marvel pointed out and said, dude, you went from Bruce to Bob, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna fix it. We'll call him Robert Bruce Banner.
Okay.
So that is where that came from. You know what I'm saying? Because Stan Lee couldn't remember Bruce Banner. He called him Bob.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting little story about the Hulk.
Never
there,
knew that.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's it's a cool little thing if you dive deep into Hulk lore and stuff.
The different identities of the Hulk are like even more pronounced if you like think about it that way too, because he's got a whole bunch of different names even.
It's true, and diving into we'll dive into the comic book origins of the Hulk a little bit later, but let's talk about the MCU Hulk right now and everything that's wrong with them.
Yeah.
So that the Incredible Hulk, the movie that was kind of at the beginning of the MCU, right? that leaned into the whole aspect of Bruce Banner not being able to stay in one place because of the fact that the Hulk was such a a polarizing and disrupting influence in his life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've never gotten that ever since. And I think a part of that has to do with the fact that we can't Disney had to use the Hulk as kind of like a co-star in all his movies, so you couldn't really get a fully fleshed out storyline. So they decided, well, if we can't do the Hulk in his own movie, let's kind of thread him through these movies and we'll develop the character that way. And I think it's to the detriment because there's no one clear vision of what the Hulk is, because different directors are grabbing onto it and using the Hulk as kind of like a prop for their films.
Yeah. They never effectively took the Hulk through the journeys that he goes through to become all of the different versions of the Hulk, right? Because I'll say this. For me, and this is still not an accurate depiction of the Hulk, but the most accurate movie featuring the Hulk was probably Age of Ultron, I think. Because
in a sense,
I mean, it's not accurate still, right? It's definitely not accurate to the comic, or at least not accurate to like the journey that the Hulk goes through in the comic, because he just, again, is used as a prop, right?
Yeah, and one thing I will say that I do hate about the Age of Ultron Hulk is how easily he's manipulated by Scarlet Witch to become, the crazed Hulk, which is something that if you look at the comic book, that shouldn't happen, because his mind is uniquely the physiology of his mind. He can block those type of attacks.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And for it to happen the way it happened in Age of Ultron, it was just when I was like, come on, guys, really? You're messing up the Hulk as it is, and now Scarlet Witch can easily just manipulate his mind and stuff. And I'm like,
with red wiggly woos.
Yeah, I just everything about that just drives me nuts. But anyway,
no. I guess I understand that, because I forgot that this is the reason in the World War Hulk comics and the World Breaker Hulk storylines that he's able to fight Doctor Strange, right? Because Doctor Strange, obviously, if he were able to use magic, and Hulk had a Superman style weakness where Superman in his comics is in canon of weak against magic. That's the whole reason that the Hulk is able to fight these cosmic level, like high level characters. I mean, there's even a comic, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a comic, I haven't read it, I don't know if it's full, I don't think it's canon, but there's a comic where he like basically beats the One Below All with like a Hulk clap. He just
there's various the thing about the Hulk, and we have this instance in the comics where the Beyonder actually looked at the Hulk in a clinical fashion, and he said basically his power is limitless.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has the power to end multiverses, and he's done it in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So to see what I know what the Hulk can be, and then to see what the MCU has done with the Hulk, with Smart Hulk, he's not even Professor Hulk, he's called Smart Hulk in the MCU. It's just like Endgame. Again, there's certain things, like when they go back in time and he goes back to the original Avengers, and he sees himself as the quote unquote crazed Hulk, because he's still not there yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Savage Hulk, right? And he sees himself, he's like, oh, I'm angry. And then he goes out and he's like, oh, ooh, I'm angry. Ooh, I'm like, you're killing me. You're killing me with him again.
Teeth through the car or whatever. Like it was kind of funny in the moment, but it was also like cringe, like for Hulk fans at the same time.
It really is.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Go on.
I've heard of the one above all. Who is the one below all?
He's relatively recent. He's not super recent, but like the one above all obviously is supposed to be like a stand-in for the creators. They say like Jack Kirby, like the biggest
Stan
creators in
Lee.
Marvel, Stan Lee, all of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
The One Below All, I think, was created of sometime in the last 10, 15 years, just as like a counterpart, like to that.
Oh,
It's there. I don't know that there's any really big backstory to like. They were just like, you know what, like we got one above, so why not one below as well?
wouldn't that make him the weakest thing in all existence?
The One Below All, I guess, if you
Yeah,
take
he's
it literally.
below all. Because the point of one
Yes.
above all is he's strongest above all.
Yeah.
So if you flip that, the one below all is basically just a dude.
I think his. Let me just check this because I think it's the one under.
No. It's the one. It's the One Below All. It's definitely the one below all.
Is that it?
Yeah. I'll look it up also to see if we can get a little
One Below
more
All. You're
context
right.
as to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how he was introduced.
He's part. He's kind of like a dual. He's still part of the one below above all, but he's kind of like a separate, maybe. I don't know, like a yin to a yang to that.
Yeah,
person,
or like a part of like a trinity, but like a trinity that's good and evil, basically. I just want to see if I can find out when he was introduced, because I know that, like, like you said, AJ, he's not super well known. So,
no. But there's a lot of characters in Marvel that are not super well known,
right? And like he's just another demonic character. How many of those are there? Also, right?
Exactly,
there's so many devils in Marvel. But yeah, there's a comic where he claps out the one below all, just like.
Well, listen,
can't do nothing to me.
The Hulk the Hulk is interesting because you know what, his best some of the best fights that he has in the comics are usually fights that he has with either existing superheroes and villains, but he has a very underrated rogues gallery as well. You know what I'm saying? Like some of the characters,
like
that High Evolutionary,
Abomination, like
Evolutionary,
Wendigo,
actually
the leader.
Yeah, that's another one.
You know, we're getting the High Evolutionary, right? You know that he's been cast for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Yep. Which could maybe lead to an eventual confrontation between the two, because he has some good storylines in the comics, I think, against the High Evolutionary, obviously. Again, there's some other great villains.
He's faced pretty much everybody in the Marvel universe, and he's faced Superman in DC,
And he's he faced Batman, and Batman kicked him in the solar plexus, and
didn't he make him fall asleep or something like that?
No, he just kicked him in the solar plexus. I guess Batman like kicked him so accurately in the solar plexus that even the Hulk could not withstand it, and he beat him that way.
Okay.
So if there's any worse representation of the Hulk,
he tanked Superman. So
yeah. If there's any worse representation of the Hulk in the MCU, it's that comic where Batman like kicks him in the chest, and he's just like ow and falls over. But
I mean, you look at the origins of the Hulk, and the origins of the Hulk is very, very interesting. And I'll give like a very brief history. So the Hulk was a character that came out in his own comic way back in the 60s, right? Mm-hmm. And again, it was him, a direct. He came out of the popularity of the Thing in Fantastic Four, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, his run only lasted 6 comic book series, 6 comic book issues. Right? I'm sorry. Yeah. And they kind of got rid of him, but he showed up in different places. Now, in the Hulk, the very first one, everybody knows this is like comic book history. The very first issue, he was gray.
Yeah.
And the reason that he was made gray is because Stan Lee wanted to kind of create the character that was kind of, racially ambiguous. He's not white, he's not black, he's not brown, he's gray.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the reason. And the funny thing is that his story, we've seen it before, where he's a scientist, he's working with General Thunderbolt Ross. He creates the gamma bomb. He goes out and tries to save Rick Jones. He saves Rick Jones, but then he's irradiated with gamma rays. But the interesting thing, those early Hulks, the Hulk would only come out at night.
He's a vampire.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. He was more like a werewolf, right?
Well, both, I guess, right?
Yeah, during the day he's normal Bruce Banner, and then at night he would turn into the Hulk.
It's not
You know
exactly
what
like
I'm
a vampire because he would just burst into flames. Yeah, right.
Right, exactly.
better
So he had werewolf effects for the very first beginning of his story, right? And it was in the second issue that they turned him green because of the fact that, for whatever reason, back in the day, gray was a very hard thing to print.
Okay.
So they changed him green in the second issue of his first run. They canceled his series, and then he showed up in, I think, Fantastic Four, and in that one he created a gamma machine that helped him kind of get rid of the Hulk. So he would use the gamma machine to kind of bring the Hulk back, and then he would use it to break it and stuff like that. It wasn't until he got into Amazing Stories or Amazing Tales, I forget, or Astonishing Tales, right?
I think it's Astonishing Tales, yeah.
Where the concept of anger was the thing that brought out the Hulk.
Or like adrenaline, right? Because I think it's
adrenaline, stress,
adrenaline.
Yeah, adrenaline, stress, anger. Those things would then bring out the Hulk, and that's where we've gotten the Hulk as what we know him now, right?
Yeah.
You know, don't make me angry. You don't want to see me angry, right? Mm-hmm. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's where that came from. It wasn't until the 80s that we got the notion of his father and the abuse that he had as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And the Hulk was kind of a schizophrenic break
mm-hmm.
that was already manifesting in Bruce to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, the trauma of seeing his father kill his mom, you know, that's where that came from. And then the gamma bomb just kind of brought that out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the Hulk origins, and you know, we've gotten, you know, Devil Hulk, Savage Hulk, Mr. Joe Fix-It, World Breaker Hulk. One of the best runs in recent memory is Immortal Hulk, you know.
Mm-hmm. I haven't read that one, honestly.
That is great, because that is kind of like a Hulk but in a horror story. You know, he's very scary in that one. You know, he literally, and the Hulk has changed in terms of power levels over the years. You know, he definitely has superhuman strength. His size, you know, physical size, changes based on how angry he is, and his power level also rises. So he's kind of like Dragon Ball in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
He's always breaking barriers and stuff, right?
I mean, there's videos of him fighting Goku and One Punch Man and all that too, right?
Yeah, you know,
like fan videos.
and something that they've leaned into, especially lately with some of these runs, is that he's immortal. He can't be killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of started with Civil War II, where Hawkeye killed
the bullet that Bruce Banner gave him, right, or something like that.
Yeah, it was an arrow that, you know,
mm-hmm.
He was confronted by all of the heroes because I forget who the character was, but he saw into the future that the Hulk would kill everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he's being confronted, and, you know, he got angry because he was being accused of a crime that he hadn't committed yet. Hawkeye saw this and shot the arrow and kind of killed him dead. But he never died. He just was kind of like in a slumber or whatever. There's been instances where the Hulk has been dissected and put into jars and come back to life.
Mm-hmm.
He's used his bones as armor. He literally ripped his head off at one point. The Hulk can't die.
Hulk's like Deadpool. Yeah. Hulk is very much
Yeah.
like Deadpool. He's got a way more advanced healing factor than even... Well, Wolverine has a crazy healing factor in the comics also.
Yeah, and he could literally lose limbs and grow them back.
Yeah.
So the Hulk is basically a guy that, you know, it will live on forever. And I think in some of the storylines, he's lived as long as 200 years, you know. And then you had, I think, World Imperfect, where he went forward in time to fight a future version of himself called Maestro, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maestro. So he's got tons and tons and tons of storylines that are completely awesome, and we get the MCU version,
They just in the
which is
comics, or not in the comics,
crazy.
even in the movies though that were good, like they don't really expand on the Hulk very much, other than he's a loner and he's mad. Like, which is just, if you, when you read the comics, and I haven't read a ton of Hulk comics to be honest, but like when you read the comics, especially the most in more recent years, where they've really made an effort to expand the character's backstory by, like you said, adding the trauma from his childhood, making him an intelligent character, but also like creating the World Breaker storylines and the World War Hulk storylines, creating these conflicts. The problem kind of in the MCU and all these things also is that they've just been, like you said, piecemeal taking some of these elements, but never really expanding on them, right? Because Ragnarok is what? It's World War Hulk, World Breaker Hulk, kind of. It's like that setup.
It's Planet Hulk. It's all Planet Hulk.
Right? Planet Hulk, excuse me.
Yeah,
and they just kind of,
but it's not even. Over. Yeah, it's and Planet Hulk is an amazing storyline because if you remember what Planet Hulk is, Planet Hulk, the Illuminati sends him off planet because they deem him a danger to the Earth.
I love Planet Hulk. It's like like the Hulk is Conan or something like that. It's
exactly.
Awesome.
He gets to this planet Sakaar. He leads this. He becomes a gladiator because the Red King is the guy that is the supreme ruler of that planet. And
he gets married.
He gets married.
He has a kid.
He has a kid. Well,
kind of,
almost. You know what I'm saying?
No, but he does. Remember, like in the comics, doesn't that kid's like somehow end up surviving? Remember, in the future, he finds out.
But that you're talking about the show,
not the show.
In Planet Hulk,
because I know his wife gets
she dies along with the unborn child.
I could have sworn that I remember reading something. I must be wrong. You're the Hulk expert, so I'll shut up. But
she dies, and the child dies with her because the people bring the ship that he came in to the city, and they trigger, I guess, the self-destruct button or whatever.
That much I remember. That was something the Illuminati did. Remember, they put the explosive on it. And remember, that's why he goes back to Earth like super pissed, because he's like, why did you put this bomb on here?
Exactly. So the inhabitants trigger it, but it's the Illuminati that put it there to begin with. And it's exactly what you said. He's dealing with the trauma of losing both his wife and his unborn child, and he goes back, and that's when you start the World War Hulk series, right? Where he actively wages war against the Earth. You know what I'm saying? Those are stories that are amazing. Those are stories that we're probably not going to get because of Thor Ragnarok.
You know what
and the one other thing, and just before we again, to add to his powers, his blood, which is going to figure prominently in She-Hulk, right? His blood has life-giving properties.
Yeah.
His blood has been used against Dracula. You know what I'm saying?
His blood didn't, like, when he bled in Planet Hulk, that was like bringing that planet back to life, right? Like his blood was like sprouting plants and all this craziness. Like that's part of why they decided, like, you're the guy to rule this place. Like it was almost like quasi-religious.
It was like a prophecy that he was the guy that was going to come back and bring life to the planet again and stuff.
But like
those are stories that are awesome, but those are stories that we're never going to get because Thor Ragnarok exists in the MCU. They've already kind of gone into that thing where he's the gladiator, he's living on another planet. Now maybe they haven't shown that violent and vicious rebellion against the Red King, but I don't know how you adapt it when you've already kind of told part of the story in Thor Ragnarok at this point.
I have an idea of how it can be done. It's very, 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 very unformed, and I basically just came up with it off the top of my head right now. But like, the only thing you really can do is create a sort of Earth-based version of Planet Hulk, and maybe like somehow Betsy Ross is involved, because I don't see him going to another planet at this point again and like finding some new wife and then being like, yo, you all suck, you killed my wife. But like the only other like emotional connection he has. You know, Nat is dead, Black Widow is dead. That was the other person that he might have like probably freaked out about, and like, you know, if somebody were involved in her dying, like some of the Illuminati or someone, somehow he would have, you know, gone total world breaker. The only other way I can see it now is like we do know that even though William Hurt passed away, rest in peace, that they're still trying to do something with the Thunderbolts.
Right.
So you can involve it there somehow. But before I even get any thoughts on that, or maybe there's nothing to say about it because it's such a vague framework for how you can get there. I kind of wonder what y'all think about like maybe the reason that we can't get the Hulk that we want yet. Maybe the reason that we might get World War Hulk, as there are rumblings of World War Hulk film being made over, like, I think I've been hearing it over the last year, and you just shared an article where it talks about how Universal's deal with Marvel is most likely ending in 2023, and so they're developing a movie. But like part of the problem is power scaling in the MCU, right? Because if you have a character like the Hulk who is limitless, like how do you write that? You know what I mean? Like they had to cut down on Thanos's power level, right? They had to cut down on Hela's power level to a certain extent. Like every character that we've seen, generally, Ultron is a win.
Oh my god, Ultron!
Yeah. I mentioned that because I know that's going to bring a rise in age because he hates the way that they made Ultron in Age of Ultron.
They did Ultron super dirty, but like a lot of that, like even that, like because of the fact that the MCU is sort of boxed in, and this is maybe a consequence of the Russo style of writing. I don't think so, but I just wanted to throw it in there. Like grounding it in reality makes it harder to bring the fantastic elements of a character who has limited strength, cannot be killed, like is able to deflect magic. Like all these aspects of the character couldn't really be introduced because of that. And another thing, if you think about it, is that the MCU, it has some moments where the themes are a little bit more adult, but it's still generally like kind of a kid's thing, right? Like, yeah, it's for us nerdy adults, obviously, us, 40, 50-year-old like dudes still watching this stuff and loving it. Nothing wrong with that. But like, there's not very many adult themes in the MCU. Like you think about Daredevil, right? And Kingpin in the Netflix show, and you had kind of that same origin for Kingpin, right? Like this thing where this trauma from his childhood is what made all of this into what he is. You can't really do that in the MCU. There hasn't been anything that dark, quote unquote, in the MCU. So you can't bring those darker aspects of the character that you love, that a lot of fans love, to the character in the MCU. So me ranting about all of that, I wonder what y'all think about that kind of reasoning and that context behind why the character isn't what he could be.
I think the reason, well, I don't know, because like when you making, because then if you make the Hulk 2 center stage, you might as well make it the Hulk movie, and they clearly don't want to do that. It's really,
I think they do want to do that. They just haven't been able to do that.
I think there's a big itch.
But that's kind of wrong.
No, but you know what though? Like I'll say this, and AJ, maybe think of it this way. Kevin Feige definitely seems to like taking characters that either aren't super well received in the comics or never were like A-listers in the comics, or what he seems to be wanting to do also in some cases is like redeem some characters that didn't get that they got short shrift essentially earlier in the MCU, right? That's why we're getting Hawkeye shows now. That's why we got, unfortunately, a Black Widow movie way too late. But there's some sense in my mind that Kevin Feige, with this opportunity that he's going to get, if the rumors are to be believed, that he's going to say like, you know what, I can make a good Hulk movie that everybody will love, because we liked the last Hulk movie with Edward Norton, but it wasn't spectacularly well received, right? It was still in that phase where it was like, the MCU's okay. Like I didn't even start watching the MCU until like the Avengers. I didn't see the first few movies because it was good, but like the quality was inconsistent. I feel like Kevin Feige wants to rectify that. I feel like he really does. So I see an opportunity there for him to do that. I don't know if you agree. I don't know if you think that that's what he wants to do, but like I feel like there is a desire, at least coming from him, to say, dang it, I want a great Hulk movie that like people can hold up to like your Captain America Civil Wars, your Infinity Wars, your Thor Ragnaroks, even if you want to do that, because that's still a very, very good movie, right? For how much we talked a little bit of crap about it earlier, it's still a great movie. It's just that got extended a little too far into the next one. But I think there is, right? I don't know.
Well, when you put it like that, I guess so, but I can't really speak to it. I never really see this dude's press conferences and whatnot. So I don't know.
I mean, just
I
think
mean,
of
based on what you said, I can kind of see it, but even then, like, I don't know. It's just too much back. It's too much in the background legal BS.
Yeah, which is the unfortunate part of this. But they made it work with Spider-Man. I mean, I know Spider-Man is a much more popular character, not to say anything bad about the Hulk, but Spider-Man is probably the most popular character in comic books other than like Batman, right?
You know, the difference though is that Spider-Man, they were able to bring the character in to the MCU with a clean slate.
Yeah.
You know, with the Hulk, we've already had how many he was in, the Incredible Hulk, obviously he was in Age of Ultron,
Avengers
he was
films and all that, right?
He's been in at least 6 to 7 films already, so we've already gotten kind of far afield with him as a character. So it's gonna be a very, and you're looking at Smart Hulk now, which is basically a mild mannered, happy go lucky, funny, sweet version of the Hulk. It's gonna take some working to get him to
You know
world
what
breaker
would be
Hulk.
interesting?
So
You know how they teased the leader at the end of the Incredible Hulk?
and never went back to it, right?
Yeah.
What if that's his arc? If they bring him back,
I mean,
like maybe he sees this stupid Smart Hulk and he's like, "Yo, I want to tap that powder keg," but he's too much of a wimp right now. I got to change that.
it's a possibility. I mean,
And so
a
the
high
leader does
evolutionary.
his machination crap, and he's like, "I'm gonna get Savage Hulk back. I don't care how, what my methods are. This is going to happen."
he did love the beauty of the Hulk and the savagery that he embodied, right?
Exactly, and the leader is always trying to harness his power. What power are you harnessing from this dude?
I know.
He's got to make him break his
Literally.
chains. So that's why the leader would actually be a pretty perfect thing to revisit.
He does know Betsy
Well,
Ross.
It's funny because and kind of speaking to what both AJ and Jose are talking about, we are getting a lot of callbacks to that original Hulk film in recent films. We've already, recent properties, because we've already seen the Abomination in at least one, right?
Or Shang-Chi,
which was
right?
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi.
And now he's going to play a prominent role in the upcoming She-Hulk. You know what I'm saying? So we're, going back to what you're saying in terms of Feige, and he's like, you know what, I can make a really good Hulk. You might start seeing the seeds of that actually happening because of the fact that they're bringing in these characters, you know what I'm saying, from that original film. The one, it's interesting because one movie that we haven't spoken of that is not a part of the MCU and wasn't well received when it first came out, but has gotten a little bit of love in recent years, is the Ang Lee version of
Yes,
the Hulk, which
there
is the
we
one
go.
where Bruce Banner was played by Eric Bana, and that one,
My favorite, no holds barred.
Other than the final boss, I was cool with that movie.
Yeah, I mean, and the dogs was a little wild.
Yeah,
also,
yeah, that's true.
You know
There
what
were
I'm
a couple of moments where it's like, nah, chill, Ang. But it
but
was a great
there's a
movie for a
yeah,
lot of
but
reasons.
and there's an instance, right? And Ang Lee, props to him because he was really out of his element when he was creating this movie, and he did try and make it as a comic book movie to the point where there are panels of
Hmm.
comic books in the actual movie.
Yeah.
So he tried to get that feel. So props to him for doing that. But if you look at the way that story is and the emotional bent that it takes, I can make the argument that that is the most Hulk Bruce Banner movie that we've gotten
Ever.
ever. Yeah,
Ever.
exactly. You know what I'm saying? Because it dealt with the trauma of him and his father.
Yep.
You know what I'm
I was
saying?
going to say
It
that. Hmm.
it dealt with, the psychological aspects of Bruce Banner and the Hulk. It dealt with the relationship between him and Betsy Ross and stuff, and that was now, of course, the argument was like we don't see the Hulk until like almost 2 hours into the film,
Right.
and we only see him for like 15
It was
minutes,
still a good movie.
but yeah, exactly. I think if you look at it in terms of story themes, that's probably the closest that we've gotten as a Hulk character in the movies and in the films in any iteration,
You
to the comic
you
books.
could almost like say, in a sense, and then you could all like tell me what you think about this. But if you take the Ang Lee film's story and the Edward Norton film, I don't remember who directed it, the Edward Norton film's fight scenes and action scenes, you have yourself like a great Hulk movie. Like not just
Yeah.
a decent one, but a great one, right? Because his fight against Abomination is real cool in that movie. All of his different battles with the military are better than they are mostly in the Ang Lee film, even though there's some good fight scenes with the military in that film as well. But like I said, the
What?
dog fight scene and the cloud at the end
Wait,
are stupid, at least in
wait,
my
now
opinion.
hold now hold on a second. Are we really gonna forget about the tank scene?
Yeah, the tank scene was
Oh, and Ang
cool.
Lee? No, the
The
tank
tank
scene
scene
was
was cool. I
cool.
didn't say it was bad. I just think that there was some better elements for the most part in the Edward Norton version of the film.
I think the Edward Norton version of the film shows the best version of the Hulk as
As like
the
a
Hulk,
savage
the savage,
monster, right?
exactly, you know what I'm saying? I think the best version of Bruce Banner comes from Ang Lee's version,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Um and listen, I don't mind Mark Ruffalo as a character. I just think the character itself hasn't been well written. They kind of, again, I go back to this whole thing where they kind of write him as a co-star. He's kind of like a prop in the film, not a character that they need to work on, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that's to the detriment of the Hulk in the MCU because he hasn't been able to get a proper film aside from that first one with Ed Norton. And so his motivations, his storyline, the reason his fit, the biggest part of the Hulk is the fight between Bruce Banner and the Hulk in terms of control, right?
Right, because
That's a
it's
huge aspect of the character that hasn't been visited at all in the MCU.
yeah, there's
You know,
not that much.
Well, they solved it.
Yeah, the Dr.
Apparently,
Jekyll
they
and
solved it.
Mr. Hyde stuff is like out the window, right? Because that was a
right, and
big
that's
aspect of the
such a
character.
huge part. Exactly, that's such a huge part of him. All his motivations are to try and cure himself of this. In the MCU, even going to the Avengers, he's like, you know what? I'm angry all the time, and he
Tee-hee.
embraces that side. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, that's not what the Hulk is about. You're misrepresenting the character.
Like that was a
You know?
pretty cool moment, but at the same time, it's like he doesn't get control of it that easily in the comics, and when
No.
he does, he always loses it eventually. Anyway, he always loses to the Hulk at some point again, and the Hulk takes over, and that's kind of the problem too, right? Because in the comics, you have this deep backstory about that Jekyll and Hyde, kind of tug of war. If you don't have it as much here, or if it happens off screen, right, like it did with Smart Hulk,
Mm-hmm.
if he flips back to being savage, quote unquote, it doesn't quite feel as earned. And I didn't like how they did it in the comics too, right? Because like he became Professor Hulk or something like that, and then he realized there was like another personality or something like that in there that was the
Yeah,
Savage Hulk. I was like,
at some point they split the two into two different characters. Like there was there was literally a Bruce Banner, and there was literally a Hulk.
right.
And eventually they realize those guys have to stay together because apart they're killing each other. you know but yeah, but like you said, like for instance, here's another thing that I thought was interesting when they did it and never went back to it. Remember in Infinity War, he's literally having a fight with the Hulk.
Yeah, it was comedic
to the point that
but
but to the point that the Hulk didn't want to come out and he had to don like the Hulkbuster armor in order to fight. That could have been the start of something where it's like, okay, you're dealing with the schizophrenia of the Hulk, and they never went back to it.
I heard that they were thinking of doing it for Endgame, right? And they ended up cutting it. I believe that I remember reading something about that. That maybe is just me thinking about rumors, but like they wanted to show the progression. And instead, they were just like, "Nah, he's just Smart Hulk now. It's fine." Like, and he looks more like Mark Ruffalo.
Totally skipped all that part.
I think that's another thing I don't like about the character, and I want to hear what y'all think about this too. I don't like the fact that they made him look more and more like Mark Ruffalo. I really don't, because Mark Ruffalo is like a really nice dude. I mean, he seems like a really nice guy. So like, you want to turn the Hulk into like one of the nicest guys in Hollywood? Like, how does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, what do you?
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Along the track of this new personality stuff, maybe a way that we get Hulk back is if they somehow trigger the transformation to Grey Hulk.
Maybe, but like he's doing freaking yoga in She-Hulk, so I don't know how close we're gonna get to that. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of
got to happen sometime.
And you also have to look at it this way: the fact that he's Smart Hulk, it automatically makes that version the weakest version of Hulk, right? Because what is the thing that drives the Hulk's power? It's anger, stress, adrenaline,
not rationality.
If he's so calm and able to control it, then now you've already dumbed down the Hulk that much more.
So
he's gotta be pressed again.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know how you do that at this point.
You got to kill somebody. I mean, you got to kill Betsy Ross.
I guess, but at that point, does it feel earned?
No, it probably doesn't. But like, I guess She-Hulk will give it an opportunity, perhaps. I don't know.
Well, She-Hulk does some very interesting things with the She-Hulk character, because there's going to be a change of origin there as well. If you remember the She-Hulk character in the comics, the reason that she gets these gamma powers is because she is, I forget what it is. It's a car crash, right?
She's dying for some reason. Yeah,
she's dying for some reason and gets a transfusion of blood from Bruce Banner, which is family, right?
They're cousins, for those who don't know, right?
Yeah.
No.
Interesting change. There is going to be a car crash, but Bruce Banner is going to be with her, and
Was he gonna bleed on her?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, that's how it happens.
Okay.
You put it as a joke,
but wait
right?
a minute, though.
That's exactly how it happens.
Wait a minute, though. You know how Feige like puts these little weird threads in? That's a Planet Hulk reference, for better or for worse.
I know that.
It's healing blood.
But it's a definite change to the way the character gets her powers. He literally bleeds on her, like you said.
But wait a minute, it's a car crash. How does the Hulk bleed in a car crash? Like, what?
I have no idea. That's what I've heard. We'll find out
in like a couple of weeks.
Well, this is Smart Hulk. He is the
literally in 4
Hulk.
days. We're recording on Sunday. Right. She-Hulk comes out August. We're recording today, August 14th. She-Hulk comes out August 18th.
Oh man!
So we'll find out very, very shortly exactly if that's true or not. I hope that it's not, because, like you said, how does the Hulk bleed? You know what I'm saying?
That easily.
This isn't Hulk. This is Smart Hulk.
Well, I will say this: there is a spaceship involved, so maybe that has something to do with it.
What is she getting
So,
a crash with a spaceship? Like what the hell?
yeah, she does.
Oh my
I
god!
swear to God, I kid you. I can send you the still of the car right in front of the spaceship, and the spaceship is like hovering on the highway.
A spaceship, though. I mean, think about all these. I know that
She-Hulk is gonna be
no,
weird,
no, no.
man.
But
I'm
but,
telling
but
you.
besides the fact that it sounds weird, think about these elements that they're the healing blood,
The scroll.
a random spaceship. Like, why is a random spaceship there? That's like some Planet Hulk vibes. Even though I don't think they're gonna do that, maybe there is
I
something
think
there. Maybe
I
there's
think
something that they're
that's
planting there by taking some elements from those
I
storylines.
think that's a setup for Secret Invasion, to be honest. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, that sounds weird of itself. I'm gonna be really interested in watching the She-Hulk and see how all this stuff plays out.
Oh
You know,
man, I kind of want to
um,
I don't know if y'all have some time, but like part of me wants to we haven't done this in a while, like maybe stream it all together on Friday or Saturday and then like
yeah, we can
record an
try and do that.
episode because I would
You know.
love to see your reaction in real time to be honest.
Oh my god, I don't know. That's gonna be completely bonkers. I'm actually looking forward to
Sure.
She-Hulk, but it's things like that that's like, I know we always say in Feige we trust, but your reaction said it all. It was like, what is he gonna bleed all over her? And it was like, well, yeah.
Yeah, he is.
There's a spaceship. What?
Like
It's gonna be one of those type of series where it's like, you know, you're gonna be incredulous with everything that happens.
and also yoga.
Yes, and yoga.
He's doing yoga
So,
poses, which
I don't know. It's
Not
what
for
they've
long.
done to the Hulk is
I hope.
as bad as Thor. Not as bad because he's still an enjoyable character,
Yeah.
but as far different that he is, I think the Hulk is probably the one of the worst depicted characters in the MCU right now.
He's not a solid adaptation based on his comic version.
No,
this is true.
Nothing like that. So
Like every other character stayed pretty close to the root of what they are. Even Spider-Man, where his origin was changed, right, a little bit, and it became like more over the 3 movies where Aunt May was the catalyst instead of Uncle Ben. Even though we're going to see a little bit more when we get to Spider-Man freshman year, although that's not going to be canon apparently. But
yeah. But at least, like I said, you're starting with a clean slate with that character. You're and that character has kind of remained the same way throughout. The 5 instances in MCU, I think.
well,
Is it
Hulk, Avengers, Age of Ultron, Thor 6, Thor Ragnarok,
6?
Infinity
Okay,
War,
6.
and Endgame. That's 6.
Yeah.
Right, and now
So-
She-Hulk will be 7.
Right.
Yeah.
So at least with Spider-Man, he's kind of been the same.
And he had his own movie.
And yeah, exactly. He has his own movies to flesh out that character.
Even if he was like kind of like Iron Lad, he still had his own trilogy of films to set up that entire backstory.
So as much as I'm kind of happy that they're thinking about bringing World War Hulk to screen, I can't get thoroughly excited yet because I don't see how you get to that point that quickly. That seems to be something that has to be a change over time. And if the rumors are to believed, where they'll start production sometime this year, and with aiming for a 2023 release, which I don't think is a smart thing to do. I don't see how you go from Smart Hulk to World War Hulk in the manner of a year. And that's the thing that really concerns me. Yes, you can say, "Oh, kill somebody off" and stuff like that, but that trauma has to be built over time. It'll feel unearned, it'll feel rushed, and you've already got a character that, in many fans' eyes, is not the character that you know and love from the comics, and to do it this way feels like something DC would do.
Y'all need to see the eye roll.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, you know what? No longer. No
We'll
longer.
see. We'll see. Because Discovery, we don't know what Discovery is going to do with Warner Brothers still. So, um,
That's a
you know,
whole other conversation. We were even gonna
that's
like bring
a
that up a little bit, but like, nah, that's
that's a whole
deep.
podcast right there.
That's too deep.
You
If
know,
we talk about world like the Hulk for this long, imagine how long that podcast is gonna be.
yeah, that's gonna take a bit. So,
and like for me, it's like also when you think about She-Hulk and setting up certain characters. Another thing that we got to note is that it's also setting up another character that's returning to the MCU, and that's Daredevil, because
yep,
he's in that show as well.
yep.
So
In the classic yellow and red,
which is cool. Like honestly,
yeah.
I'm actually like kind of excited for that. I'm really excited to see Charlie Cox back in the MCU, and I'm like the fact that we're going to see him this soon, other than like his appearance in No Way Home, is really, 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 really,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I'm
Guys,
still scared.
guys, yeah.
Why?
Before we start saying, oh, they're gonna Disneyfy him, let's see him first.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see it first.
Let's not pass judgment. Because
Judgment already passed.
for all the things we're saying, oh, you're gonna Disneyfy the characters.
Totally
the MCU has
Disneyfied.
been pretty dark at times.
At times.
Yeah, so give them credit where credit is due.
The only thing that I worry about is that in the sense like AJ might be right, because they did slightly Disneyfy Kingpin in his appearance in the Hawkeye series.
Yeah, but that was such a limited time that we had with
Sure.
him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I think let's pass judgment when it actually happens, and then we can rant and rave about how Disney ruins characters. But until that happens, let's stop with the rhetoric.
Yeah, they haven't ruined most of them. Like,
exactly.
Right? Most of them are pretty good depictions of the characters, even if there's changes that people don't necessarily like in every case. People still like Thor, even if they don't really like exactly what he's become. Like, Chris Hemsworth is awesome, and I'll give him credit. He still makes the character fun, even when sometimes you're like, oh, that's a little too much comedy.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, look, they literally cut off Thanos' head. You can't tell me that that they're they're trying to make it whatever. It is what it is.
You know what they should do? And we'll leave it at this. They should partner with Universal to create a monsterverse built around the Hulk. Forget about all those, Dr. Jekyll. Remember, because they tried to do the monsterverse.
I think they're still trying to do it.
They're still trying to do it.
Yeah, I just saw an article not too long ago where it's like,
let's do it again.
Universal is still trying. So,
no.
Although I will say this, because while we've been talking, I've been looking up Hulk's rogues gallery. It's very scant.
There's some good ones, but it is kind of like not as
he falls
robust.
he falls into the problem that Superman falls into. You're looking at a character that's so omnipowerful, right? His power is limitless. How do you write a proper villain to counteract that?
But even Superman has a more extensive rogue gallery.
Yeah, I know, but you look at who's got a better rogues gallery.
Do you really
Batman
want me
or
to read
Superman?
them off? Batman, but
Batman is a power level much less than Superman. So, with Batman, there is elements of danger there. With Superman, it's like, maybe he'll get busted up a little bit. Maybe they'll go after his family. But at the end of the day, Superman is powerful enough to tank probably every single thing that those guys throw at him.
Yeah. And I mean, another thing is and I don't want to minimize how cool the Hulk is, but he's not like flagship level like Batman or Superman, right? They are the characters basically in DC. They're the most popular characters. So they have to have an extensive rogues gallery, like more extensive than almost any other character in comics. They're the leaders in a sense.
And think about the Hulk. The Hulk's biggest villain is the Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's his fight, Bruce Banner's fight against the Hulk. So the Hulk will always be the villain in his story, but far bigger than anybody else that you can bring out there. So Absorbing Man, Abomination, the leader, the Gargoyle, all these guys.
Gargoyle, well, yeah, he's
Who-
more like a leader type. He
Yeah.
doesn't fight.
But like I said, they pale in comparison to the battle that Bruce Banner has to deal with when it comes to trying to control the Hulk. So
We shall see, I guess.
yeah, I guess so.
Does everybody feel good
right.
about that?
No,
Good.
I feel worse.
Yeah,
So.
it sounds like AJ feels worse too.
Yeah.
I
It
feel
is what it is.
about as in the middle as I was before, but I can't wait to see She-Hulk regardless.
Yeah,
As I don't want to say that this phase has been underwhelming. It's still been entertaining, but I think
they're building.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they're building.
I think everybody has to realize it's like as if we went back to phase 1 again to a certain extent.
Exactly. Those early films weren't the greatest, but they built to something magnificent.
Right. And from what I understand, I think isn't Wakanda Forever, like from what I've heard, Wakanda Forever is going to be a film that's going to set up a lot of like all these threads that have been these little breadcrumbs that they've been planting in each of the shows. From what I understand, Wakanda Forever is going to be something that's going to like take it very far forward and like make everybody start to understand what they're doing here. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of properties coming out in the next few months that are probably going to start to crystallize some of these things that we've been seeing, and these villains that are going to become the big ones.
In Feige, we trust.
Let's hope.
Right? Yeah,
let's hope.
He hasn't done us dirty yet.
Nope.
Well, not too much.
I mean, you can't blame him for like sometimes the quality not being 100%, right? He's one man.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. He's one man. Nobody's perfect. There's a lot of the people involved, a lot of directors, a lot of writers. As he's writing the overall story, right? But he doesn't write the little details that are in there. He's not that meticulous. Some of them, yes, but it's a framework, right? It's the whiteboard in the MCU office, and we'll see how that continues moving forward. But yeah, I have faith in Kevin Feige, and I mean, if the Russo brothers come back for Secret Wars, then I have a lot of faith in that as well.
Yep,
we'll see. Alrighty. Let's leave it there. It was another wonderful episode. It's good to be back. It's good to talk a lot of BS about the Hulk and just get to chat about that for a little bit. With that, let's say a couple of things for y'all fans out there. I want to thank y'all for getting all the way to this point of the episode. As always, best way to support your favorite podcast crew, as we've said in the past, and it's been a while since I've given y'all a pitch, but like, rate, share, and subscribe. Find us on all your faithful social media platforms. Find us where all your favorite podcasts are sold. Give us some reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts. That is the best way to support one of your favorite podcast crews. So thanks from the crew, from Walt and host. I guess there's nothing left to say except let's get back to it, guys. Stay geeky, my friends.
Well, there's one more thing to say.
One more thing to say. Go ahead.
Hulk smash. Later, people.
Ladies.